So, initially, the title for this video was meant to be something along the lines of Ted has had enough of Barney, or something about the bro code. After the events of the crack in their relationship that appeared as a result of Barney having sex with Robin, which in turn led to Ted cutting him off. And whilst that topic was good, I felt that the events as they played out afterwards affirmed something I theorized in an earlier video about how Barney and Robin are on the outside looking in with regards to friendship between the trio of Marshall, Lily, and Ted. Because whilst the McLaren Five might consider themselves friends in equal measure, I do think the events of the fallout of Barney and Robin hooking up proved otherwise. There is an imbalance in Ted and Barney's friendship, and the show doesn't even attempt to hide it. Now, before I dive into all of that, of course, something to note if this is your first time finding my channel or watching this particular series, hello, I'm Noria, and welcome to my How I Met Your Mother video series, where I'm at the moment documenting my first time ever watch of the show while sharing my thoughts as I go along in a stream of consciousness style, where I talk about these characters and their choices, try to analyze their behavior, and make guesses about my expectations based off of my thoughts on how things are progressing or what I learn with every new episode I get to watch. I will like to reiterate that this really is my first time watching the show, and I have so far been able to stay away from discussions about the show and its characters. So, this is a blind reaction for a series that I know finished hearing years ago and I'm only just getting into now. And from what I've gathered, those of you who have been watching my How I Met Your Mother videos do enjoy watching me guess my way in the dark. As such, I would ask that you please continue to not drop any spoilers in the comments. I really appreciate all that you've done so far in ensuring that I maintain my spoiler free reaction. If you do want to say something that addresses a point I made but that veers into spoiler territory, just give the spoilers ahead warning with a bunch of asterisks so I don't accidentally get spoiled and can ignore the comment, whilst other subscribers or non subscribers who are watching my videos can interact with your comment and you all can chat about how right or wrong I am and what I've missed or noticed in the process. And for those keeping track, I still haven't watched beyond season 3, episode 20, even though today's video event starts from episode 17. And if this is your first time stumbling on one of those videos, kindly know that I do have a format where I split it into 3 parts. The first is the intro, followed by the synopsis, and then my actual thoughts. As such, I always have timestamps put in to help you with navigating the video as you so choose. Of course, before I get into the synopsis part of this video, I would like to say a big thank you to my lovely patrons and YouTube members whose support have been instrumental in helping me continue to make content, especially since I started doing this full time at the end of last year, which was the last time I was in paid employment. And a special shout out to Lena, Sherry, and Holly for their extra support. You get all the hearts and kisses to. Mwah. If you too would like to support me on Patreon or become a YouTube member to enjoy certain perks, even get a shout out, the link to do so is in the description bar. And with that said, How I Met Your Mother season 3, episode 17, titled The Goat, starts off where things ended in episode 16, i.e., Barney and Robin wake up in bed together the morning after they've had sex. Robin is justifiably horrified by this turn of events and makes a proposal that she and Barney pretend that this lapse in judgment never happened. Barney agrees with this. Unfortunately, neither Barney nor Robin are able to just forget what happened, and what then follows is Barney being very awkward and jumpy around Ted the minute they are all at McLaren's and almost spills the secret several times, and he even tries approaching Robin to let her know that he's actively panicking. But Robin, who is all cool as a cucumber, tries to get him to calm down, to no avail. Now, all of this is happening against Ted informing his kids, of course, that he's about to turn the big 3-0. And apparently, somewhere in that celebration, a goat wreaked havoc on the apartment. But he promises to give the kids and we, the audience, more info on that as we progress. Barney, meanwhile, is in full panic mode and is terrified of what would happen should Ted learn the truth. In order to get ahead of that, he immediately hires Marshall as his attorney for a bit. Marshall is currently still unemployed, remember? Anyway, Barney hands Marshall the bro code, a big book of the different codes that govern friendship between bros that was allegedly written back in the 18th century by Barnabas Simpson, an ancestor who looks exactly like Barney, on behalf of Benjamin Franklin and George Washington. Yeah, right. Who were too busy doing governing shit and participating in the Devil's Three Way, where they unfortunately had situations of engaging in eye contact with each other. A situation that seemingly never happens again because that is one of the core rules in the bro code. Thou shalt not engage in eye contact with your bro during a Devil's Three Way. There's also the code about not having sex with your friend's mother, and ultimately the code that Barney broke. Bros before hoes, or in this case, thou shalt not have sex with your best mate's ex. Anyway, Barney hands over this code of rules to Marshall and asks him to find some sort of legal loophole in there, which is when Barney comes clean to Marshall about having had sex with Robin. And since he has already hired Marshall for the job, Marshall, who is now bound by attorney client privilege, cannot spill the secret as much as he doesn't want to have to hold on to it. Like, Marshall is not in a good place. To make matters worse for Barney, however, Marshall visits him later to say that he has gone through the bro code several times over, and unfortunately, it is an airtight document. Barnabas Stinson did a damn good job closing every single loophole that could be found. And to make matters worse for Barney, Ted has been quite studious about maintaining and adhering to the code. So Barney can't even make an argument about Ted having broken the code before either. So Barney, it would seem, is very much screwed. Now, whilst all of this is happening, the friends are planning a surprise birthday party for Ted, who is looking forward to it, even though he's pretending to be unaware. And the goat ends up being part of the festivities. Now, the goat, it turns out, had been brought to Lily's class to show the kids what a farm animal looks like. The problem, though, is that the farmer who had brought Missy the goat over is drunk off his ass and goes into quite the vivid detail about how the butcher is going to absolutely butcher their Missy, sending the kids into a crying panic as they beg Lily to save the poor goat. Lily then takes the goat home in order to spare it such a fate, with a plan to eventually send it over to animal control. Except, of course, Lily gets attached to said goat, even whilst the goat is shitting everywhere and chewing everything, and said goat becomes a central part of the party whilst locked in the toilet, but we'll get back to that in a bit. Like I said, Ted is looking forward to the celebration and is picked up by Barney, who doesn't drive Ted home but instead wants to take Ted on a limo driven ride to Vegas, where he's planned quite the extravagant bash to celebrate Ted's 30th birthday. Clearly, the guilt has gotten to him, and eventually Ted puts him out of his misery by mentioning that he knows that Barney had sex with Robin. Turns out that even though Robin was acting all cool as a cucumber about the issue, she too was panicking and couldn't bear to keep the secret and had spilled the truth to Ted much earlier. Now, whilst Ted was calm with Robin, he absolutely loses it with Barney, yelling and asking how Barney could do such a thing to him, especially since he had always thought that there was a limit to Barney's acts and Barney would never do that to him. Barney tries to talk, but Ted points out that Barney is most definitely the bad bro who couldn't even live by their agreed upon bro code, and now he doesn't even want to be bros with Barney anymore. He demands that the rider, who it turns out is Ranjit, the taxi driver from the episode, from the first episode, the pilot episode, who then becomes a limo driver, right? Ranjit, who is just as pissed at Barney, by the way, for breaking the bro code. Ted insists that Ranjit should drop him off. A devastated Barney watches Ted walk away, and Ted heads to the rooftop of his apartment for the surprise birthday party that has been prepared for him. As for the goat, however, it turns out that future Ted got it wrong. The goat wasn't with them for his 30th birthday celebration. She was present for his 31st birthday party instead. So we have to wait a whole last year in universe to find out what exactly happened and what exactly Mr. the Goat did. The end. Now, the one thing I'd always found interesting to note and that spoke to the hypocrisy of Ted was mostly how things played out after he learned the truth of Barney and Robin having slept together. Because whilst I do agree that Barney did break the bro code, I found it interesting that Ted transferred all that anger at the events that happened on only Barney, when just like Lily says, Robin very much had as much sex with Barney as Barney had with her. Something that Robin agrees with, even as she wonders why Ted isn't as pissed at her as he is at Barney. Lily's guess that the reason why Ted is not angry with Robin is because he's in love with Stella is meant to be read as sweet and romantic as it pertains to Ted and Stella's relationship, I know, but at the same time, it had me quirking an eyebrow because ultimately, it does to confirm that on a subconscious level, the entire gang is working with this weird ass supposition that places Robin in a category where she's forever tied to Ted simply because they were once in a relationship together. And that irks me. It's like some childish game of, I can't have her, you most certainly cannot because she was mine first. And before anyone comes for me, I agree that friend groups do have that unwritten rule about not dating each other's exes. It's usually meant to keep tension and drama away from the friendship. And I get that. But there's just something about when it spills over into possessive territory with that sprinkling of narcissism that pisses me off. Because here's the thing, Barney in this scenario did what he has always done. He is a hoe. The narrative has always painted him as the type of guy that has sex with a ton of women. Ted's anger at Barney isn't because he's on some morally good shtick that he thinks Barney took advantage of Robin at a moment when she was emotionally vulnerable. No, he is angry with Barney that Barney had sex with his ex-girlfriend because he believes that now that he isn't with Robin, no one else in their friend group should be with her either. Which one? Ted at this point is in a committed relationship with another woman, with Stella. His refusal to not maintain the same energy it had for his ex with his friend implies that due to him being happy and in love, he's willing to extend forgiveness to Robin for her indiscretion, which I don't know about you, but that definitely reeks of some weird sense of entitlement that Ted seems to have with regards Robin because they used to date when he is, I repeat, in a relationship now with someone else. And the only reason why he's forgiven is because of that relationship, which means if he wasn't, it would be a whole other story. But most importantly, why should it matter to Ted what and who Robin does when they aren't together anymore? Secondly, and like I said earlier, Barney did what Barney is wont to do, which means that the way in which I see it, Ted isn't just mad at Barney because he felt that Barney betrayed the bro code and slept with his ex. Ted is mad at Barney because somewhere in his subconscious, he believes that Barney is allowed to do shitty things to other people, but not to him. His objection isn't about Barney's bad behavior, is that said bad behavior was turned towards him. Which, like I said, I find hilarious as hell because if you have a friend who acts terribly to other people, you have to be living in full on la la land to believe that at some point or the other, the shoe would not get onto the other foot and you wouldn't be treated in quite the same way. Maybe if perchance Ted, at some time in the course of the 3 seasons we've been following the group of friends, raised active objection or any sort of objection really to Barney's behavior, maybe if that had happened at some point, I might be more forgiving towards Ted and not be so harsh about his reaction to Barney's actions. But however, he, just like the rest of the group, have been pretty tolerant, if not encouraging, of Barney's shenanigans. So his anger at this point just has me shaking my head like, bruh, it's Barney being Barney. What else did you expect? But let's put all of that by the side for a bit and let's talk instead about the imbalance in Ted and Barney's relationship and how the events of the episodes affirm this. Which, gods, I cannot believe I'm right. I cannot believe I was right because if you all can recall, especially for those who have been following my How I Met Your Mother series, you remember that I'd stated earlier that the dynamic of the McLaren Five read instead as Ted, Lily, and Marshall as friends, the trio that had known each other and been together since their college days. And then you have Barney and Robin, who are the more recent additions of the group. And like I mentioned in my Why Barney and Robin Are Perfect for Each Other video, this episode further drives home that point, the point I raised in said video, i.e., Robin and Barney are forever doomed to be on the outside looking in as it pertains to matters of the McLaren Five. Because if anything, Ted's decision to end his friendship with Barney solidified that. I mean, it says a lot that after the fight and Ted cutting off Barney, Barney was not welcome into the gang anymore. He stopped going to McLaren's when the rest of the crew were there. We don't see any scenes of Marshall and Lily attempting to hang with him or meet up with him without Ted being in the picture. And so they never did. Like, sure, we don't get on screen confirmation of Ted forbidding them from being friends with Barney now that he and Barney are on the outs, but we can infer that Marshall and Lily cut Barney off out of respect for Ted and their friendship with Ted, which came first, which they are prioritizing. And I find it interesting that in that period of time, the only one of the McLaren five that Barney reaches out to, who ends up meeting him at McLaren's when the others aren't around, of course, is Robin. And I know he kind of tricked Robin to show up to help him with the new wingman he was trying to train, but still, Robin is the only one there. The only one he's chatting with, the only one he breaks down in her presence when she mentioned Ted, and he's stuck again with the realization that he and Ted aren't friends anymore. For me, it affirms that what I had mentioned in my Barney and Robin video, which is that the two of them would always be on the outside looking in, which I find it ironic that in Rebound Bro, it is played out that they are the only two together in McLaren's outside of the rest of the gang. Like, sure, part of it is tied to the fact that they had had sex and so have that connection based off of their shared guilt about what happened between them, but it still works within the context of them being the outsiders of the friend group. Because ultimately, the one with the power within said friend group is Theodore Evelyn Mosby. On the account that one is the one who is telling the story as such, the narrative has always centered him, his point of view, and his wants and desires that it pertains to everyone around him. And two, because he's the one around whom the rest of their friend group revolve. He's the one who is best friends with Marshall and college friends with Lily as well. He's the one who is dated Robin and is the one through whom Barney gained access to the rest of the McLaren Five. And that is very important to note. In the How I Met Everyone Else episode, we see that Barney met Ted first, was able to hit on a woman thanks to Ted, even though Ted did sign to the girl that Barney is a dirtbag. So that didn't quite work out. Ted was the one that ended up introducing Barney to Marshall and Lily and later Robin. Without him, Barney would not have had access to them at all. And that puts Ted in a position of power with regards to their relationship that Barney quite frankly doesn't have, and their friendship falling apart and reverberating across their friendship group confirms this, shows clearly that imbalance. It is interesting to me that no attempt was made by either Marshall or Lily to try and repair the grift. Even Robin tried in her own way by pointing out that she had received forgiveness and felt bad that Barney didn't get the same. Ted's initial response about him having outgrown Barney was bullshit, because ultimately we know that what Ted was doing in that moment was punishing Barney for not considering his friendship important enough to be protected. Barney stepped out of line as far as Ted was concerned, and Ted responded by cutting him out. Except this ended up meaning that everyone else too cut off Barney. Like, I am okay somewhat a bit with Ted cutting him off because he felt hurt, but everyone else too. And I say it's punishment because of how Barney found his way back into his friendship with Ted and the rest of the McLaren Five as a result. Because I don't think it's a coincidence that it took Barney literally putting his life on the line, rushing to go meet his friend, a friend, mind you, who didn't even list Barney's number to the hospital after he was involved in an accident that would have been dangerous or even fatal, but he got away with no injuries. Ted gave the number of the rest of his friends and Stella. Stella, who to him at that point, he had broken up with previously, but now with a new lease of life meant that he wanted to get her back. He gave the hospital staff all those numbers, but didn't think of Barney. It was Lily who realized that as much as they might have been on the outs, Barney deserved to know about Ted being in the hospital. And so Barney runs all the way from his office, didn't want to waste any time getting a cab, runs all the way to the front of the hospital and was just about to cross over to head to the entrance when he gets run over by a bus. And unlike Ted, who got off with no injuries whatsoever, Barney has almost all the bones in his body broken. It is that seeing Barney putting his body on the line to try and be by his side as his friend that has Ted finally accepting Barney back as his friend. I don't know about you, but I read that moment as Ted accepting Barney's injuries as Barney haven't paid his penance for him having sex with Robin. And so to Ted, everything was back to being all right with the world. Possessive, narcissistic as that. You know what I do wonder about though? because I am curious. The events of the season 3 finale hints that Barney might have started developing feelings for Robin. Now, we know that Robin has no idea about this and doesn't like Barney in that way. But we have been given the hint of Barney wanting something romantic, hell, something more, with the whole you see the one you love at the moment of almost death bit, and it is implied that it was Robin he saw. And now I wonder, is Ted's forgiveness at the season 3 finale for the one time moment of Barney having sex with Robin? What happens when either of them want more? Because none of the conversation was Ted acknowledging that Robin is her own person. And if she decides that she wants to have sex with his friend, then he's not going to blame her or hate Barney or judge them both for it. Nope. All of his crash out was for one singular event. So what happens should they want more? Should they decide, like accidentally go for more? What happens should a relationship between Barney and Robin be something that they start to consider? Are we once again going to get the iced out treatment? Is Ted going to once again cut off their friendship? Bonus points if at this point his relationship with Stella has crashed and burned, and so he's not in love with that generosity of feeling where he waves away any betrayal he feels towards Robin by virtue of the fact that he is no longer available at the moment and he's in love with another woman. What happens when all of that then plays out? I mean, maybe I'm delusional in this, but I do not think it's going to be pretty if the writers take it that route. Matter of fact, I think things are going to get pretty damn catastrophic. Also, I just remembered I'd mentioned in the episode before Ted got with Stella, of course, when he had that deal with Barney and then ended up breaking up with the girl because he thought she had had sex with Barney first and just couldn't go through with it anymore. I'd mentioned in my comments of the video I made on that episode that it is funny how Ted has this puritanical view about these women and their bodies and his entitlement to them, whereby he's refusing to see their decisions as autonomous and cannot get over them having had sex with Barney prior to him, and how we know Barney wouldn't have the same hang-ups if the situation was reversed. Happy to see that I was right with how things played out with Robin and Barney. I am just saying. Of course, these are just my thoughts. I would, as always, love to hear yours. Whether or not you agree with me, please share them in the comments. Like this video, however, if you've watched this far and haven't done so yet, but enjoyed anything of what I had to say, share it so others can find my channel. Or you can check out my gaming or ASMR channels if they sound like something you might potentially possibly be interested in. I have them both linked in the description bar. I will see you tomorrow with a new video. Until then, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.